Go back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlewoman from Georgia, Mrs. Greene, for her 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Riley, I want to thank you for being here today, and I want to recognize that you are a hero and a champion to women and little girls all over the country. And your bravery and courage is admired not only by little girls and women, but by Americans all over. And this goes across the political divide. I think you probably had no idea all the years you spent training in the pool, working out, you had no idea, earning your college scholarship, competing in the sport, women's sport, by the way, that you trained to compete in. You had no idea that you'd be sitting in a committee before Congress about left-wing organized violence. But here you are today. And I think that all started with having to compete with a man who's 6'1", named William Thomas, a biological male that invaded your sport, invaded your privacy, and came in to defeat, demoralize, and completely destroy the sport that you love. And so, number one, I want to recognize that, and I want to thank you. I'd also like to ask you a question here. You said, and this is in your testimony, you said that you were threatened, intimidated, assaulted, and held hostage. And I'd like to just give you a minute to go ahead and expand on that when you weren't able to finish. And please expand on that.
Right. I know you guys saw a brief snippet of what I saw for hours. So I'll kind of expand on kind of what was being yelled and said to me to elaborate on why I'm here on behalf of condemning violence. In this room where I was held hostage and essentially held for ransom, actually not essentially, I was held for ransom, the protesters from outside the room were yelling at the officers who were on the outside of the door protecting me, "You're only protecting her because she's a white girl." And of course, these officers then were terrified. They were terrified to do their job because who wants to be accused of that accusation? They were yelling things such as, "You shouldn't have came here. You knew this was going to happen. You were asking for this. Open that door and let us at her and we'll handle her. She doesn't get to go home safely. She doesn't deserve to go home to her family."
You were there that day. What was the topic you were speaking on?
Let me reiterate what I was there speaking on. I was there speaking on behalf of protecting women's sports. My speech consisted of, I probably spoke for 45 minutes, to which I opened it up for question and answers afterwards, I actually only opened it to opposing questions because I wanted to have this conversation, not because I want controversy, but because I want to have that open dialogue. I think that's how we create solutions. Mm-hmm. My speech consisted of, I, of course, talk about what it means to be a female athlete, the amount of training, the dedication, the sacrifices that you have to give to compete at the level I was competing at. That national championships is the fastest meet in the entire world. I talked about what that experience looked like. I talked about the locker room. I talked about the silencing, the very real silencing that we dealt with because of our universities. And of course...
And Ms. Gaines, may I ask you, any of the people that threatened your life, your safety, kidnapped you and held you hostage in that room that day, were any of those right-wing extremists?
No. The people who were in the room for the speech portion, it was about 50% protesters versus 50% supporters. But of course, the aftermath of really the ambush, again, I can't tell you every single one of their political affiliation, but I can almost certainly say that there were no right-leaning protesters in that room.